Have you ever thought of a person that you knew for sure couldn't be human, that could never die even if you tried everything in your might to stop him? I'm not talking about Jeff or Jane the killer, no. I'm talking about someone equally, or possibly, more terrifying than them, Chulo Beloff, aka the home run killer. I guess I should stop the story by saying that I am a detective who was investigating the horrific murders committed by Chulo Beloff, or more urbanely known as the home run killer, who is still at large to this very day. Chulo reportedly quote-unquote home run 22 victims. I'm here to tell you what I came up with of the little-known history of the home run killer. He is described as a shady man, usually wearing a hoodie or a sweater with a red bandana covering his mouth. His face is described with the contents of somewhat long black hair and red eye contacts. Chulo Beloff was born in a small Romanian town on January 20, 1981. At the age of 3, Chulo's father, Sergei, beat his mother Michaela to death with a baseball bat and was sentenced to hanging. Chulo was then sent to an American orphanage. Sadly, no one was ever interested in adopting poor Chulo. Even in high school, Chulo would always walk his way back to the orphanage he called home. Now, you could be feeling sympathy for Chulo Beloff before I tell you that he was 21 times worse than his father and diabolical enough to send the videos of his murders to the station. I guess this is a perfect time to explain the killings and how they went down. So a week ago, we got an unknown phone mysteriously placed in front of the local police station, labeled for me specifically. We investigated the contents on the phone and only found 22 videos. There were no other changes to the phone, just 22 strange videos. The chief of police was not sure if I should investigate the videos, but I didn't mind reviewing the videos. I was just very confused of why it was sent to me specifically. So I entered my office to review the first video. If you didn't know, a detective's job for reviewing mysterious videos is to always be prepared. But trust me, no one could ever be prepared for what was on that phone. I got myself ready to record what was videotaped, hooked up the HDMI from the phone to a monitor, had a paper sketchpad ready to describe what was on it, and I was ready to watch the first video. I looked at the title of the first video. I found it somewhat questionable, as the video was simply named VD 1201 and was 1541 seconds long. But I sat back and hit the play button. The first strange thing I noticed was that the video was pitch black for the first 15 seconds. I actually thought the video wasn't even playing, but I saw that the play button was not in its pause state. The first scene aside, I was immediately jolted from a loud noise being heard in the background of the video. The camera panned up to show a man lying on the ground, all tied up and beaten. He lay there, muffling and trying to scream as loudly as he could. Then, a man who I assumed was the person behind the camera started to speak in a very strange-sounding accent. "Yeah, you better be afraid, because I'm up at plate." Afterwards, I heard the sound of a metallic object being dragged across the floor. Chulo set the phone down on a nearby object and pointed it towards the victim. He was dragging a metal baseball bat on the floor beside him and walked over to the petrified victim. He was trying to do whatever he could to get out of there. Chulo had enough of the victim's futile begging and slowly said. Chulo took a fierce, powerful swing at the victim's face. He made a huge dent in his face on that swing. He then proceeded to brutally bash the poor man's skull in for who knows how long. I couldn't watch. After what seemed like 10 minutes, I looked down in horror, about to gag. To be honest, I couldn't stop myself from vomiting in pure disgust. But then he finally stopped. I looked up to see the silence of the room and saw what was left of the man. His face was unrecognizable, covered in red guts and bone. His body lay limp upon the ground, an ocean of blood surrounding him. I looked back down, preparing for another gag, but nothing came out. I attempted to process the horrible crime scene I just witnessed, until the monster looked back at the camera and talked once more. "I can see your face right now, a face of pure fear, a prime example of the faces of my upcoming victims. Even though you can't really see his face right now, I know he was scared, just like how you are right now." He then grinned, not just at the camera, but at me. He wanted someone to watch these gruesome videos, to see how batshit crazy he was, and to see how much of a name he made for the home run killer. "I'll see all of you soon." Chulo Beloff signing off. He whipped the bat at the man one final time and yelled home run. When the bat hit his corpse, finally, the video had ended. I was speechless. I looked down at my sketchpad. My hand was shaking but ready to write what I witnessed. But how would I explain this video alone to the chief? I then also realized I had to watch 21 more videos possibly just like this. My mind was scattered. I didn't know what to do. So I told him that we have one confirmed murder and that I'd keep reporting throughout the week. But I really didn't like the thought of what would possibly happen next. I just wanted the day to be over so I could go home and get as much sleep as I possibly could. I woke up frantically from a nightmare of the home run killer. Of course, it went as if I was the poor man who had his face bashed in with that baseball bat. I was lying on a hard-tiled floor in a room I was not familiar with. I had tried to look around and see where I was, but everything was nearly pitch black, the only light source being a small light hanging from the ceiling. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching me. I rolled over on my back and saw the maniac, Chulo, approaching me with a metal baseball bat, grinning maniacally at me. I tried desperately to get away, but Chulo had made sure that I couldn't stand. My legs were bound together in duct tape along with my arms. He hovered over me with the bat in his hands. He didn't do anything except stare endlessly into my eyes. I didn't think he was going to do anything. Then it hit me. No, it literally hit me. Chulo struck me in the chest with the bat as hard as he could. He left me lying there, gasping for air. It felt like he punctured a hole in my lung. Then he took another swing. This one hit me right in the knee. I cried out in agony, but I could no longer feel my leg, nor move it. He was just circling around me like a vulture, but at the same time, he was staring directly into my eyes. He circled me for a good 5 minutes before he just stopped, still looking at me with his menacing red eyes. He was starting to get very unpredictable. 1 minute he would go for a hit, then the next he would just stand around and watch. Then, without warning, he yelled home run and swung the bat at my head. I woke just before it hit me. I didn't really feel like going into work today and watching any more videos, so I called in sick and took a day of relaxation. I went into work the day after, but I didn't feel like my normal self today. I felt different. I walked into the building and went over to my boss's office so I could show him the video. I knocked on his door and walked on in. My boss asked how the video was. I looked up at him with a worried face and handed him the phone, and then waited outside his office. I tried to warn him. I tried so hard to warn him. After a bit of waiting, he barged the door open. I noticed that his hand was violently shaking the door handle, so I asked, "Sir, are you out?" Just as I was about to finish asking my question, the chief vomited on the floor. I backed up in worry. After catching that incident, the chief told me to go home and stop the investigation. At first I thought he was right. Told him I could not watch anymore. I lied. I lied and took the phone when they didn't notice. This would unfortunately lead to my downfall. So, after I got back home, I got my sketchpad once more and thought I was ready to watch the second video. So, I got and hit the play button. This time the video got straight to the action as there was Chulo holding his bat in his bloody hands and a girl beside him. I had a good idea about what was going to happen next, and I didn't like one bit of it. Chulo then talked to the unfortunate woman with his awful dialogue. "Hello there, girl. I'm sorry to say I have been very bored for a long time now. All I can say for you right now is that you talked to the wrong person at the wrong time. Goodbye." He then swung his bat toward her and missed. He dented a big hole next to the woman and on purposely said, "Strike one." He swung at her once more, this time making a hole another side of her head. This hole went even further into the cement wall. He must be really strong, I thought. He then proceeded to slowly say, "Strike two." I knew was going to happen next, and I looked away. I heard one final muffled scream before I heard a splat coming from the phone. "Strike three, you're out." Then silence commenced, and the video ended. I now understood that he wouldn't hesitate to kill women either. I swear, for the whole week, I thought he broke me. One disgusting murder scene after another, and one god-awful baseball one-liner after another. I even saw he mislead a child to his unfortunate demise. The child had no idea who he Chulo really was. I remember what Chulo said. "Here, I'm going to throw the ball, and you're going to hit it to me, okay?" The child agreed to Chulo's game. Chulo threw the ball to the boy, who hit it back lightly. The ball slowly rolled back to Chulo. Chulo then walked up to the child and explained, "Oh, no. If you're going to hit the ball, you have to hit it as hard as you can." The child nodded willingly. What he did next was inhuman. He grinned and said, Chulo whacked the poor child in the face as hard as he could. He killed him instantly. The remnants of this skull lay beside his face in a gory, hellish scene. I think that video broke the last of my sanity because I now noticed that I didn't even react that much to the video. I was just not reacting that much because I knew the outcome of every video, murder and death. But at least I found out he could be damaged. On the 17th video, there was a man who secretly had a shard in his back pant pocket. During a speech Chulo had, he cut his bindings and furiously attacked Chulo. The man cut Chulo twice before he knocked over the camera. After about 30 seconds of screaming and pain, silence was heard in the background. Out of nowhere, someone picked up the phone. To my disappointment, it was Chulo. His face was very cut up and was breathing very heavily in pain after the struggle between the man. I was also finally on the last video, finale, 1223. I was so relieved that all of this would be over today, but I was also afraid this would most likely be the worst video, and that name is very cliched. The video started similarly to the first video, except it completely showed Chulo's face after the first 15 seconds, with medium, pure black hair, and those demonic red eye contacts. This video had the worst quality. I looked throughout background to see if there was anyone else there, but there wasn't. There was no one else, just him staring at the camera. He then said, Anthony, I'm very glad you have been watching my videos. I have been watching your fear, quite hysterical I must say. Looking at you seems to put a giant smile on my face. How did he know my name? He must have been kidding. He couldn't have known me. Or maybe now, I just didn't want to admit it. I know you. I've been in the corner of your eyes for the whole week. Hell, I could even be watching you right now. I looked back anxiously in case he was. I couldn't see anyone. I was now getting increasingly scared. You may be thinking, I'm looking at the murderer who ruined so much families' lives. But no. Chulo brushed his front bands out of his way, revealing a giant stitched-up, bloody scar on the side of his forehead. This is the source of my insanity, the madness that corrupted me long ago. The doctors never knew I lost my psyche. Deep down, the person I was before died and was taken over by darkness. I didn't understand what he was saying. You know, Anthony, you're the only one that actually knows who I really am, and because I told you my history of my murders, I'm going to have to kill you." I had a shocked and worried expression on my face. "You're out, Anthony. Have a nice safe trip to the police station." As Chulo maniacally laughed and the video ended, I grabbed a kitchen knife and my gun and slowly made my way to the police station. Strangely, I did not see anyone on my way to the station. It was a damp and very foggy day, and I couldn't see anyone else in sight. To be honest, I saw him a couple of times grinning at me. I jumped to conclusions and assumed that it was my current paranoia, but I made it safe and sound, and also luckily, the station was still open. I made my way down the hallway and into my office. Some of my friends gave me a strange look like I was crazy. I gave my boss the rest of the videos so he could review them and told him more about what I witnessed. He told me I could take as long as I could to come back to work. I was so relieved that what Chulo said couldn't have been true. I was still very confused of how he knew some of my personal information, but I was more busy trying to get out of town for a little while. Before I left, my boss told me to lock up the police station. I was putting away my work and getting ready to go. Then I heard a very anything. I slowly looked back. It was one of the foreign colleagues who usually help out for employment. "No, but thanks for asking." I then continued locking up my office, but then he asked this. "I just got started watching baseball and I don't really know what goes on in it. Can you tell me a few things?" I was a little bit confused by what he was talking about, so I just nonchalantly responded with, "Well, there are singles, doubles, triples, and an H." I paused in terror. I looked back and saw a better description of the colleague. He had black hair, red eyes, and was holding that baseball bat. Chulo fucking Biloff. I was closer to the door, so I slowly backed up, wondering what would happen next. He then enthusiastically said, "I'm sorry, I do not think I let you finish." "What?" I quickly pulled out my gun and fired 2 shots. The first bullet deflected off his butt, and the second shot got him by his right arm. I ran out of the office as fast as I could and saw a baseball bat fly through the wall. I also could hear an ironic faint home run from Chulo. I ran down the hallway with the knife in my hand. He threw the baseball bat down the hallway and just missed me again. I shot him in the hip after he missed me. I attempted to shoot him once more, but I pulled the trigger too hard and broke my gun. I kept running, thinking of how stupid I was for my gun to break. Then I had an idea. The moment Chulo swung around the corner of the hallway, I would stab him with my knife and end this once and for all. I waited around the corner. All I could hear was the bat dragging across the tile floor, slowly getting louder and louder. The noise eventually stopped. I charged at the man with all of my might, ready to stop the demon. I got him directly in the heart. He somehow kept his composure. After a bit of standing, he laughed. He was just laughing, his laugh growing louder and crazier by the moment. At the beginning, I talked about trying to stop someone who can't die. This is what he truly is. Chulo can't be human. He then said, "You really thought a knife could kill me? Well, to be honest, you could have. You really did damage me the most out of my victims, but you are also very good at stabbing me and shooting me in non-vital areas." Chulo slowly pulled the knife out of his chest and acted as if it was just a small cut. It was impossible. That should have killed him for good. How? How could someone be that resilient? How did I miss a vital area? How is he not dead? I then realized in terror what was going to happen next. Chulo took one of his deadly swings directly for my head. I attempted to block it with my arm. It worked, but it came with a price. I stumbled on the ground and looked at my arm. I glanced in horror to see that my arm was very dislocated and bleeding everywhere. I screamed in torture as Chulo took another hard swing at my leg. This time I didn't even scream. My voice cracked and I made a loud whimpering noise from my mouth, like an injured dog. I then yelled at him, "You won't get away with this. The 21 people you killed will be avenged." Chulo then laughed hysterically. "Did you really think I videotaped each of my murders? Trust me, I have killed a lot more than you can ever imagine, Anthony. I only tape my most memorable murders." I was getting increasingly scared. I wanted to deny every word he said. I couldn't let him get into my head. Not anymore. I attempted to get back up to fight Chulo, even in my crippled state. But I could not move. I didn't feel any part of my body. I was stuck and clearly ready to die. Chulo bent down and pulled my paper sketchpad out of my pocket. And inside the coat he was wearing, he pulled out a bottle of whiskey and a rag. I knew what he was about to do. He was about to tie up the loose ends I started. All I could do was stare at Chulo and wait for him to give me my untimely death. He rolled up my sketchpad and shoved it into the bottle. He put the rag on top afterwards and lit it. Chulo then looked at me and gave me his devilish grin. He said his epilogue, "Anthony, always remember, there is no possible escape from me. And of course, this is the final home run." He threw the newly made Molotov at my head. I burst into flames in a blink of an eye, losing my skin and my life. As I lay here, dying in a fiery inferno, I feel no pain, but rather failure towards myself. I hear Chulo say his final sentences before exiting the police station. "People of this terrible excuse of a world, your Reaper has arrived in a physical entity to bring you to hell. So run, hide, and pray for your life. I don't care, because I'm up plate, and I'm never leaving